How you doing, guys? Welcome back. It's LSP. It's currently the 31st of August 2021. I'm going to go over CHSB today. As always, guys, if you like the content that I create, please give the video a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. Make sure you hit the notification bell icon so you can get updated every time I post a video, which is not very often. I don't go too nuts, so I won't be bothering you all the time. But it's nice to know some of the content that I create, and the analysis that I do is quite time sensitive, so it's always good to have that bell notification ticked so you get that notification that something's been posted. And with that said, we'll get straight into the analysis. CHSB is obviously holding pretty well. You can see that. I explained all of this in the previous video. If you haven't watched that, then I do suggest you go and watch that, because it just saves me kind of reiterating the same thing, and it keeps the videos down to a reasonable length. But I will make a mention of this area here that I noted. This is very significant because of the reaction away from this level and the slow bleed back into this, to clear up some of this imbalance, and then potentially come down here to pick up the liquidity. It's this part here which is interesting. Sometimes what you find, and I'll see if I can find a good example of this. Sometimes you find like this, you see that price exploded to the downside, then it quickly recovered and came all the way back up to where it initially started. Okay, sometimes you find that that happens, and the reason it happens is because price is running so quickly away from a level that it's leaving imbalances behind. But more importantly, there's no liquidity there. So once it reaches for liquidity and it finds it, it snaps back, to kind of go back to the point of release. This isn't always the case, yeah, but it's just something to factor in, because if I was to kind of list the variables that make the most sense in terms of understanding price, reading price, that sort of thing, speed is very important, velocity is very important, the way in which price moves away from a level is important, what it leaves behind is extremely important. So as we're bleeding back into this level, it's doing it in a very controlled, very sort of slow, controlled manner. So when we do get down here, the reaction away from this level will tell us whether or not it's going to want to come down here and take out the liquidity below this consolidation. This is something that we just have to be patient and wait for. We're at a moment in time, and this is the second time this has happened now since I've been doing analysis on CHSB, where we unfortunately need an injection of volatility to get us away from this level, and we need to be back above the 120, past, and at least into the 140 range to stabilize up here to create that new range. I did mention this in the Discord chat yesterday. So if you missed it, just kind of do a search for, from users, type in LSP, and then just kind of go through the list of what I typed. And I was saying that we really need to see price at 140 and hold, for us to create that new range, which kind of opens up the 250 level, and so on, in terms of mathematics and the way that kind of flow works. But we have to be patient and wait. Whereas if you look at something like this move as it started to run up, it was absolutely obvious that price was going to take out these highs over here. There's absolutely no question about it. It was going to happen. It's something that's easy to see, something that's you can have confidence in, and something that's relatively simple in terms of the way price is behaving. Whereas this is different, because we're coming back into an imbalance and potentially to a point where price exploded, and created this nice impulse to the upside. Okay, so as price comes back into this, if it just sits there and kind of just grinds and grinds and grinds, will effectively just go straight through it and reach down here. If it accelerates down and comes into this level, okay, that tells us something else, and we'll address that when the time comes, if it happens, or if it comes down here and it reacts very nicely away from that, then this is the area that it needs to get through. And you'll notice that it's kind of a stair-stepping process. Price has to do one thing to then tell us what it's going to do next, and there's things that it goes through and comes back to, and then kind of has to get through, and sometimes there's a brick wall there, and sometimes there isn't. The way that we deduce this is by constantly keeping a track of price and the flows on a daily basis, then we take it from there. I did mention that the weekly is in charge, which it is. Okay, and I did make a mention of this in the Discord today. Again, if you're not part of the Discord, I've updated the link at the bottom, so you can just kind of click that and jump over and come in. Come into the Swissborg's Discord. It's not mine, obviously, and you generally find me in the Wealth and Trading channel. I do sometimes pop over to the French channels. My French is getting much better now. I can read French, and respond in French better than I can actually speak it at the minute. So, I do time to time just pop over there when somebody, kind of tags me in a post or whatever. But generally, I'm in the Wealth and Trading channel, which is predominantly English. So going back to the weekly chart, the weekly is in charge. Now, what's interesting about this is this drop and then drop and then drop all the way down to bankruptcy, as we call it, and then reversal. That's just my a little bit of a joke from me, because obviously when price came all the way down here, we're effectively bankrupt. The company was worthless, but obviously we know that's not the case. This is complete nonsense. But we've come back up, obviously, and as price is coming back up, this candle right here this week, okay, this is the one that creates the imbalance. This is the one that creates the rebalancing range, as price starts to go through it and around it and around it, and then it rebalances and becomes a balanced price range. So as we come back to it, you'll notice that when price is coming down, we're not coming into, okay, an area of support. We're coming into an area, right, where there's basically a brick wall of orders, yeah, and it's within the body of this candle right here. So I would expect, and I'm not going to put this on the chart because it becomes too much to kind of look at, and the chart looks very congested, but effectively you look inside the body of this candle, and you start to realize where price is stopping within this, yeah, the opens, the highs, the lows, the closes within this body, within this candle's body right here, yeah. And I say this quite a lot, but if anybody wants to do the study, yeah, this candle right here, okay, the body of this candle right here, if you break this down, so you highlight the body of this candle, go to a lower time frame so you can see how that is all shaded and see how that moved around, yeah, just the body, yeah. So you make a note of the high, you make a note of the open, the close, and then highlight this, and then as price is moving into this, so this candle, this candle, this candle, and maybe this one as well, you can see the areas where price is running back and forth, plugging in, imbalances, grabbing liquidity, offloading, grabbing more, offloading, and it's quite fascinating to see. But that tells you why price is stopping here. So as I was saying that, the weekly chart is in control in terms of overall price flow. When we look at the daily chart, okay, and you look at the daily chart like this, you say, okay, price is pulling back on the daily chart. Okay, great, but where's it pulling into? We know that there is an area down here that price could potentially want to come into. Fine. We know there's liquidity down here that price want to snap into, to pick up. Fine. But if price comes down, for example, and it takes out the liquidity here, what does that look like on the weekly chart? Okay, so if we just do this for a second, all right, and then we go back up to the weekly, we can see where, okay, that liquidity buildup is on the weekly chart, and does it coincide with anything that is of value, anything that we can say yes, it confirms that the weekly is in control, it confirms that the flows on the weekly are the ones that are creating the resistance and the supports, and you can see that price is coming in. So if price does come down and it eventually comes down to this level down here, which is roughly around about sort of we'll call it the 60. I don't know how that lines up on the daily because sometimes it's slightly off. Yeah, it's about the same. Perfect. So if price does come down, for example, where's it coming into? It's coming into an area of consolidation where we know, okay, that price stabilized for some time, so we know this is efficiently traded price. Price is ebbing and flowing nicely. Plenty of liquidity down here. And then it starts to move away from that level, okay? And it creates this nice impulse to the upside, all the way up to around about sort of, we'll call it the 119. It reverses, and we're getting a little bit of a pullback now to clear up some imbalances. And you can see the first initial reaction at this level, okay? It's had a nice reaction away from there. So if it continues to go now and it gets below this low, I would expect these lows to be taken and potentially come into this, but you can see everything lines up nicely. So it's a healthy normal pullback into this level. Obviously if price comes all the way down here, this is completely different. Are we going to see these prices again? It's very unlikely, very unlikely. but it coincides and it lines up beautifully with everything that we want to see to confirm that the weekly flows are in control. Now, because the weekly flows are in control, remember the weekly chart is much stronger than the daily chart in terms of investing, in terms of longer term views, in terms of liquidity flows and accumulations and cycles and things like that. And obviously you've got big investors, because it's not just individuals. Obviously you've got banks, not necessarily banks, but you have we'll just call them institutions that are invested in CHSB. They have to be. We're talking big money, yeah. So they're not looking at the 5-minute chart and the 15-minute chart. They're just looking at the daily, weekly, and monthly, for example, and they're looking for solid flows, and looking for confirmation, because you don't have to be a technical analyst to look at a chart, and as they're looking at these higher time frames, they are quite comfortable holding for, say, 5 years and seeing that the production of a new move to the upside on the weekly chart, let's say over the next year and a half or 2 years, for example, could very well put us all the way up, to the 250 and potentially $3 level. Yeah, because when you kind of scrunch it all up like this, doesn't that look like prices come up, it's pulled back, consolidated, higher low, okay, nice run, small pullback, and then the next level up. Yeah, so it's about being able to take a step back, realize which time frame is in control, and then adjusting for that when you're doing your lower time frame analysis, so you're not putting too much weight on the daily or the 4-hour or the hourly and so on. So as I'm looking at the daily chart like this and I say, okay, there's liquidity down here, prices come in, it's rebalancing, there's a potential trigger point here. If I drop down to the 4-hour chart, I have this in mind. Yeah, I have this in mind. I'm not looking at this, this 4-hour chart now and saying, okay, this looks nice, price is going to come down here and potentially run away from this. I'm aware that there's liquidity below here on the daily. I'm aware where that lines up on the weekly. And I'm going to stop there because there's some stuff that I don't want to go into, because it becomes too much and the video becomes too long, and I'm just not going to stop talking, basically, because you can see how all of this ties in. Multiple time frame analysis from weekly to daily to 4-hour to hourly to 4-hour to daily to weekly to monthly, and back, you're going back and forth, interchanging the time frames and making sure you understand the concept of time relative to each time frame and how that unfolds over over the coming months and years and so on. So just a quick update in terms of going forward. Like I said, I've given you the the potentials. I am not expecting much in terms of upside or downside. I'm just going to let Swissborg do its thing, CHSB do its thing, unfold, and kind of tell me what it wants to do. Obviously the 197 is still on the cards. That hasn't changed at all, but in terms of just right now, going into the next sort of month or so, we need to see an injection of volatility now to really get this moving again, and we just have to be patient and wait for that. And in the meantime, we just kind of go with the flow, and continue to assess, and take it from there. So with all of that said, guys, I hope everyone's having an awesome day, and I will catch up with you guys soon. Take care.